Okay, so this is going to be more of a serious story time. So, trigger warning. This is the story about the time I was traffic coned, and being a pillhead pretty much saved my life. This is where my curiosity and my boredom almost got me unalived. So, all of this takes place in LA. I couldn't have been more than 19 or 20 years old. I'm a midnight ballerina at the time at this club in LA that's not just known for being a club, but it's known as a popular filming location, right? There's a lot of music videos and movies shot at this club. I'm sure everyone in this country at least has seen at least one video, one movie with this club that I used to work at. Anyways, they closed the club down for a day, and I guess two of the girls that are supposed to show up didn't show up. So the director, whoever was in charge of casting, needed girls. And so my manager calls me and is like, bring one of your friends. So I bring one of my little girlfriends, and we hang around to wait for our part to film in. They never actually showed me in that video. But anyways, we're waiting around to film, and we end up meeting the guys. There was guys on the set too. I end up meeting this guy, right? I thought he was cool, smooth talker. Mind you, I'm only like 19 or 20 years old. I'm still like very fucking naive. I thought he was charming though. I had spent the entire day talking to him. I got there at maybe 11 a.m. and I didn't leave till 2 a.m. the next day on set. I was on set all day and all night. And so I spent that whole time talking to him in between like filming and stuff. So he invites me over, right, to like a little kickback. And naively, me not knowing this guy, I agree. I'm like, okay. So I end up at this hotel. That should have been my red flag. Again, I was a stupid little girl. So I show up to this motel. He told me that we were going to go out to dinner, but he wanted to pre-game in his room. He told me that he wasn't from that town, and that's why he got a motel room, and that before dinner he wanted to have a few drinks and, a little herb before we went out to dinner. So I was like, okay, which to me wasn't that unusual. Like, because I do that at home. Like, I still do that at home. And I used to do that with my homegirls. So I'm like, that wasn't that unusual. So I go to the room, and there's this girl already there, and there's a guy. And this room is adjacent to another room. Like, it's an attached room. He didn't tell me there was going to be anyone in this room. He made it seem like it was just his room. So immediately, alarms are going off. I'm like, okay, but I don't say anything. I'm hungry. I'm dressed up. I sit down. He pours me a drink. We start, and everything is normal, except I noticed that every time he would get a phone call, he would look at the girl, and the girl would stand up, and he would hand her another cell phone, and she would go into the adjacent room. And then she'd be there for like 10 or 20 minutes, and then she would come back, hand him money, and hand him the phone back. And she did this like 4 or 5 times while I was there. And so my thinking was like, they're dealing. Okay. You know what I mean? I'm not thinking traffic cones, but yeah, or SW work. I'm not thinking that. Again, I am a naive little fucking girl. I wasn't more than 20 years old. Anyways, I start asking like, hey, we're like 4 or 5 drinks in. I'm getting kind of tipsy. Like, when are we going to dinner? He keeps stalling, right? And finally, after like 2 or 3 hours of me sitting there, I'm like, you know what? I'm actually gonna go home. And suddenly, when I tried to stand up, like, the whole energy in the room shifted, right? Him, the guy, we'll call him T. The guy that I met at the video, so T's blocking the door, and he had a brother that they called Ox. Okay, so they're both blocking the door and pretty much like threatening violence. Like, I'm stuck there. They made it very clear that I'm stuck there. I can't leave. A bunch of other shit happened, but I can't like get into it on this app. But a bunch of shit happened. I was stuck there for 4 days, forced to do a bunch of things with people that I didn't, want to do. I was being forced substances. Start with H. So I was like literally a zombie, couldn't do anything but just lay there. And I couldn't ask for help. I couldn't even ask the Johns for help because remember how I said he was giving that girl a phone when she would walk into the adjacent room? Well, that phone was so that he could hear. He would, like, I guess, call himself on his cell phone, and he could hear the conversation that was going on in that room. So if I asked for help, I was going to get hurt. So 4 days of that goes by of me, being like forced all these substances and yeah, just being treated horribly, trapped. Until I realized one day I used to have this purse that had like secret compartments, right? Because of I didn't want to get in trouble with the cops. I used to take Xans. I was a big fan of Xans back then, and I had these little secret compartments in my purse. They took my phone, but they let me keep my purse, and I guess they didn't go through it good. I had like a decent amount of Xans in one of my secret pockets, right? So I get the idea while I'm like, sober enough, because remember, I'm pumped full of stuff. I get the idea. I'm like, I'm going to crush these up and I'm going to put this in his drink because he would drink a lot of vodka. Like, I pretty much, I'm going to DRUG him. But I would have to wait till his brother Ox would leave, right? So I noticed that every day for a few hours, 3 or 4 hours, his brother Ox would leave the room. I guess he had a family to tend to. So I was going to have to wait until Ox left the room. And when his drink wasn't attended. So when he was in the bathroom. And I know you guys are going to say, why didn't you just run out when he was in the bathroom? I was scared. I knew if I had done that, he would have heard me. And even if he didn't hear me, if he got out, like, he was going to catch up to me. I wanted to make sure that if I was going to do this, I had a decent amount of time and that he was down. So, sure enough, he ends up going to the bathroom, and it's just enough time for me to slip it into his drink and mix it up really good. And he drinks the drink and ends up passing out, like, really good pass out, like an hour or two later. And I just run out of the room. And I just run as far as I could until I got to a grocery store. And I call the only number that I can remember, which was an ex-boyfriend of mine at the time. No, I did not call the police. I was scared to death, and I felt like they weren't going to believe me anyway because I was a dancer, and they were just going to ask me, like, why did you just go to this random guy's house? I wasn't going to do all that. So my ex comes up picking me up. He ends up saving me, thank God. I did not go back to that club because I was terrified of him going there and looking for and finding me. And so I find another club to work at. I spend the next year and a half, I want to say, looking over my shoulder, scared to death, because LA is small. Like, he could just hit up every club and eventually he'll find me. So I'm constantly looking over my shoulder for a year and a half until one day I get this call there's no number on my phone, and it's the FBI. And I get scared shitless. I hang up the phone. They wanted to talk to me about some things that I had witnessed or may have been a part of. And they had asked me, do you know Mr. So-and-so? And I didn't know. I didn't know his name. She was like, well, you might know him by T. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, I do know that guy. And she like briefly tells me what he's in trouble for. And she's like, we would love for you to cooperate. And I'm just, no, I hung up the fucking phone. Never answered an unknown number again, no number again. And I later find out that he ended up doing 10 years for traffic coding. So, yeah. But I still look over my shoulders and I still have nightmares about that ordeal. And I still fight because I had developed an H habit because that was the first time I was pumped up with it. That's what he used to get me to, do whatever. And so, yeah, it was a long battle with H. But I'm clean now. But that's a part of my story. But I am nothing but thankful that I got to leave with my life because some women aren't that fortunate that, fall into those situations. But lesson learned.